Good day, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn series right here at Caribbean Connect. Thanks for joining us as we go week to week. For those of us who don't know me, I'm Shivani Sinurain, and I'm just here to welcome our speaker, Marcus Basanta, on a very interesting conversation yet again on Caribbean Connect on business intelligence and why should we use business intelligence tools. So let me introduce Marcus and hand you over to Marcus. I'm seeing persons on the call here who will ask loads of questions. Not calling any names, but I'm sure you'll figure it out who they are. So who is Marcus? Marcus is the co-founder, executive director, and technical director of Ratio Consulting Limited. Marcus is an accomplished technology, strategy, and project management professional with over 30 years experience across a wide array of industries. Starting off his career at IBM World Trade Corporation, working on mainframe computers. He was witness to the PC revolution and constructed solid expertise over ensuring years in computer networks and service delivery. He has a demonstrated track record as an IT manager, an IT solutions consultant, and program and project manager. He has worked for over 15 years in upstream oil and gas and has led IT teams in Trinidad and Tobago, the USA, and Canada. He has worked directly for two of the oil and gas super majors, BG Group, now Shell and BP, and has been a consultant for several other small and medium business in the sector. Marcus has a penchant for deciphering complex business challenges into powerful and effective IT solutions. He has a deep comprehension of technology and is able to marry this to practical and pragmatic innovations. He has a strategic mindset in pursuing a cohesive IT strategic direction. As the co-founder and technical director of Ratio Consulting Limited, Marcus has designed and led the implementation of business intelligence solutions for many customers. He's passionate about changing minds, attitudes, and culture to utilizing pragmatic digital solutions to day-to-day business challenges and in achieving an organization strategic goals. Marcus has 3 sons and a husky, a dog, right? Marcus. Right. Thank you so much, Marcus, for joining us here on Caribbean Connect to bring this information to us. Thanks. And over to you, Marcus.
Thank you, Shivani. And the bit that's missing from my profile is trained by Shivani Sinurain. So I'm also, I would say, could always continue to be a student of Shivani's.
PMP. Great to have you as a PMP professional.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to this. I hope it's not just a presentation. I do have a very comprehensive set of slides I'll use as the backbone, but I do see this particularly as this is not, as it's a small, cozy group. I want to encourage you to interrupt me, ask questions, and interact. All right, this is not. It's a Lunch and Learn series, so it's not meant to be a monologue of me just talking through some slides, right? I don't think we have the leeway to kind of get to know everybody within this particular setting. But please, if you do come forward to say a point, and initially, at least state your name and either where you work or what sector you're in, or what your interest is in this discussion. All right. So again, welcome. And as Shivani said, I am primarily a consultant, a management consultant, but my background is deeply rooted in technology. So I've spent most of my career working in various IT level leadership jobs, right? Latterly on, I've really embraced using that IT skill and knowledge, but the real knowledge is not the technical knowledge. It's not knowing about computers and networks, which is obviously very important in the execution of of my delivery to customers, but it's about being able to translate technology for executives, for managers, for rank and file. And I think that is, if I had a superpower, I'll be super IT translator, man, because I'm extraordinarily really good for that. And I do believe that we try to bamboozle people too much with technological terms when what we really need is straight talk. Okay, so I am going to load up the presentation and we're going to go through this. Now, I don't know what your expectation was of today, right? But I've done this sort of presentation many times to particularly to executives, right? And certainly when we talk about business intelligence and its relevance to businesses, particularly business in this neck of the woods, you'd be surprised. It's not really a technology discussion. There are strong elements of technology that must be in place. And business intelligence implies that you're leveraging technology. But the biggest challenges and barriers to implementing business intelligence are not technological. They are leadership, they are people, they are culture. And most of our discussion today, you would see, is about how to harness that aspect, because you can't have one with the other. And the road to business intelligence is littered with many a project that companies have spent thousands, even millions of dollars on that are simply not used at all. And because the return, the ROI, the return on investment on something like business intelligence, it's hard to measure because unless you're putting in a business intelligence system that supports like CRM, something supporting direct customer interaction, it's hard to link that typically to revenue or something like that, or indeed cost savings, although we can. So I'd like to start my presentation. And again, please, anyone, Alwyn, anyone there, feel free to interrupt at any point in time and ask questions. You don't even need to put up your hand. I would say just open your mic and start speaking. It's a small enough group, all right? And I want you guys to actually feel relaxed in this lunch and learn session. And I hope you guys had lunch. Yeah? Shivani said she was buying lunch for everybody, so it should be on its way and there should be a knock at your door shortly.
Virtual lunch, sure, no problem.
Coffee, Shivani.
Coffee, yes.
All right, so this just covers, again, a little bit of a deeper dive than what Shivani went through, but it's more about my company 1.618 ratio. And we are a management company. We set this up in 2015. And my business partner and I, we both worked at BP, and we both had the shared incongruity of being exited, not willingly either. So we were separated from BP at the same time. And it's over a cup of coffee that he and I sat down and we sketched out what we wanted to do as a management consultancy, given that at that point we were unemployed, right? And we were looking for something to do, but we were doing this already, not necessarily together. We were operating in different departments and different silos, but we'd always recognized that we had a commonality when it came to it. And by the way, my business partner is not a technologist. He is a pure management consultant, right? And we are indeed a management consultancy company. We specialize in doing working with top tier companies. We work with some of the biggest companies in Trinidad. We specialize in oil and gas, but we operate in manufacturing, we've operated in financial, we've even operated in the airline, one airline in Trinidad, so not hard to guess. And we've operated with the biggest conglomerate in the Caribbean, again, not hard to guess, right? Who they are. And we do your typical management consultancy, a lot of strategy, a lot of growth-oriented programs, a lot of performance management, organizational optimization, all right? We also do specialized programs such as continuous improvement, all right? Operating management system, which is a little bit specific to the oil and gas sector. But everything that we do, we underpin it by by technology. We use business intelligence to deploy our traditional consulting business. And that makes us very different, very, very different from most other consultancy businesses out there. And we go toe to toe with some of the biggest boys out there. And I'm talking about the big five. We've actually gone up against them. But because of our approach, we're homegrown, we're Trinidadian business, we operate primarily in Caribbean, but we do some business in the US and otherwise. All right. So that's what 1.618 ratio is. And you'll see that this presentation is tinged towards ratios customers, right? So at some point it may feel like a little bit of a pitch deck. I'm not pitching to you. This is not a sales pitch. This is about sharing info, but our approach is really to get our clients to understand what our approach to BI is. All right. So first main question that we're going to ask today is, why does the organization need business intelligence? And yes, it's mostly about data-driven decisions. All right. So let's get some definitions out of the way. Everybody could see okay, right? Okay, great. So two schools of thought. People use these things interchangeably. They are not. They are two very different things. Business intelligence, data analytics. I snatched this from an excellent presentation on the web that just basically spelled out the main differences on them. Business intelligence supports decision making, while data analytics really works with your raw data, right? Business intelligence looks back at what happened so you can support decisions going forward. Data analytics plays into the, well, let's do this. What happens if this scenario happens? All right. Business intelligence look at, hey, what happened? And this data analytics looks at what will happen, right? And then really different, they're structured differently. Data analytics is really real-time data, right? And you're taking raw data and you're merging it. So some data scientist is tapping away at a computer and generating reports. And if any of you have worked with any BI tools out there, you work with something like Tableau. Tableau is fantastic, probably one of the best and most accessible data analytics tools out there, right? And you notice, well, we don't hinge ourselves to tools per se, though we are a Microsoft partner, and if we deploy tools, we tend to deploy the Microsoft flavor. But we are more looking at having structured data accessible by CEOs, CFOs, CIOs. And I want to add to that, business intelligence is used by everyone in the organization, all right? That's how we look at it. Everyone has a hand in playing in using business intelligence in their day-to-day goals, whilst data analytics looks to answer a specific question, all right, and is used by primarily data scientists or very specialized power users, all right. So two different schools of thought. We are talking about business intelligence today. We're not going into data analytics. Data analytics really requires either you've got a very talented data scientist or somebody who understands data, who can do this lock them in a room and do that, and they come up with the answers for you, or you have a very mature organization where you, like literally at Google, when you go to Google and you join Google and they give you a pass, welcome to Google, here's your computer, the first thing they do is they send you on a data analytics course, because they are very mature BI and data analytics organization. So they train everybody to do that, but that is Google, right? You'll see I've got an excellent chart on this that shows you the different stages that businesses go through. And most businesses in Trinidad, even some that you think are so advanced, are not that advanced. We are immature when it comes to using data, particularly in the Caribbean, right? With one or two bright flashes now and then. So what we have to do, we have to walk before we run. Okay, good. So the layout of today, and we will hopefully take about 15 minutes, maybe a little faster. Some bits I may go through a bit quicker than others, is that we'll follow this journey too. So we're taking it as, okay, business intelligence solution deployments. Why business intelligence? What's the business case for it? What's the lessons learned from other BI deployments in the past? So what have we learned from rolling this out in other places? What's the journey? Where will you be by when? How we go about the process, right? We won't do a demonstration today. Again, I told you there's some bits of this slide deck that may feel a little bit pitchy, but that's how when we build a proposal for a client, we would inevitably show them examples of BI solutions from our demonstration portal, right? We'll show you what the actual technical bit looks like for building business intelligence, the basic building blocks that you need to start working towards this. And then the last bit, I'll talk specifically about how Ratio does it, because it's a good example, because we use BI primarily for our performance management systems, right? And the question that we asked was, why does your organization need business intelligence? And my answer is going to be that, look, it's going to be primarily about performance of your organization, all right? There are other things that you could do with business intelligence, and under performance management, there's a wide umbrella. You could get things like cost reduction, you could get things like reducing turnover of staff, you could get attaining your KPIs and targets. But what I'm showing you is the most practical aspect for most businesses in our neck of the woods. This is your entrance into BI. This is what could get your organization using BI in a very practical sense. It's about performance management, all right? And I'll explain how we roll it out at Ratio, okay? So before we dive into it, any questions or comments at that point in time? Odwin, I'm gonna keep picking on you because you're the one with the camera on, so I'm gonna keep pointing towards you and ask you if you have any questions.
No, Marcus, I don't have any at this time, but
I noticed that you work for a consulting company.
yes, I do.
Excellent, so good. So I definitely expect some questions from you, all right?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, good.
Sorry, Marcus, remember I was telling you that there would be somebody, I'm sure, on the call here. I was speaking, you figured it out. I was speaking about Baldwin.
Good. And also, let me tell you something. There's no non-disclosure agreement about this. We at Ratio, we don't do non-disclosure agreements. We freely show what we do. We don't say, well, you can't show this to anybody or whatever, because well, most of the time we tell our competitors, well, we dare you to try to deploy it as good as us. You know, so you could try to thief all the material you want, you know, but you can't do it as good as us. But not only that, if you go on our website, you will actually find all of this info. Okay. All right. Okay, so what is tomorrow's organization going to look like? Because if you are thinking about BI, then you are thinking of, well, I'm not happy with where my organization is, and I want it to be more future oriented, right? So an organization would be designed for speed, agility in the future, all right? So you know, organization is going to be flatter, less hierarchy. So, you know, you don't have a boss, then his report, then his report, then her report, then his report. And you have like you have to go through about 10 people just to approve your vacation, right? So organizations are going to be flatter, right? People are going to have more decision rights distributed around the organization. So again, you don't have to go to everybody and their brother just to go and buy a pencil, all right? Faster information flows and decision making powered by embedded data and analytics. There's that word again, analytics, but that assumes a mature organization, right? Cross-functional teams collaborating to tackle common missions through test and learn approach. That is a basic thing that we embrace. And I think generally, if you work in the private sector in Trinidad, you find that is being embraced more. Everywhere you go, you tend to see cross-functional teams, except in the government. You go and talk to the government. I sat on a government focus group the other day, and silos. Accountant don't want to talk to IT, who don't want to talk to management, you know, so the government's a different kettle of fish, all right? Flexible ways of working, we've seen that with the pandemic, and definitely for hybrid and remote in-person teams like we are doing now, like Shivani is doing wonderfully with her Caribbean Connect series. Dynamic allocation of talent, so you can put people where they're most useful. So if you're in finance, but you have so much value that you could be embedded in a project, why can't you be cross-trained as a project manager, play a major role in a project? You don't have to stay in finance. Agile organization, and definitely the outcomes that we're looking for. These are the benefits. This is why, is you want to go faster to market. You want to be first to act on market trends. You want to spot customer needs, and you want to get the best people to come and work for you very quickly. People don't want to work for a company that they think is going down. They want to work for dynamic companies that succeed. I mean, it's more than just money. People want to, yes, they want to get a salary, but people want to work somewhere where they feel fulfilled. That's what's going to attract and retain people more than money. Increased customer responsiveness, and that's a big, that falls on the big umbrella there called efficiency. All right. Greater efficiency and return on capital, stronger performance orientation, and employee satisfaction. So the tagline for that: business intelligence and analytic solutions improve information flow and leadership fact-based decision making. Remember, I said it's based upon data-driven decisions and focus on continuously improving business performance. And those are your business differentiators. Business intelligence is a business differentiator. It will make you better than your competitors. In this age of Google, where you could look up anything, in this age of Amazon, where you could order anything, your competitors and yourself have very little difference between you. You know, you go to any clothes, walk down Frederick Street or High Street or wherever, and you walk all the clothing stores, they're selling the same damn thing, all of them. They would, there's this site where they order these cheap clothes from now, and all the stores are ordering from there. Of course, they put in like a 300% markup on it, right? All right, so digital transformation, and that's a big word here, because really and truly, BI is a huge part of digital transformation. All right, and I won't go through all of these, but what these reinforce, and you guys know this, is that digital transformation is not something you could duck away from. It's not something, it's not a can you could kick down the road. The government of Trinidad and Tobago has kicked the can down the road for digital transformation for 30 years, and they're paying the price now, where we are almost last in the Caribbean. Not last, but close to last in the Caribbean. The biggest economy in the Caribbean, we're almost last when it comes to digital transformation of public services. All right. So, and yes, I will return and pick on the government of Trinidad and Tobago relentlessly when it comes to, because this is one area where they have consistently and very reliably dropped the ball. All right. So we know, we as people who live in the public arena know that digital transformation is unavoidable, and it's changing the way we live and the way of our organizations operate, right? So something on Ratio's performance management system, right? What is the problem? In the middle there, in red, who is responsible for business intelligence? Aldwin, who is responsible for BI?
In
IT.
this case, no,
IT.
not IT. No, I would never say IT.
You go and ask any firm, go to any firm, knock on the door, have a conversation. Hey, who's responsible for BI? Yeah, I'm an IT manager looking at it, man. BI is not an IT function. First of all, it's not an IT function, right? Data analytics is not an IT function, right? They have key roles in it, and they play a leadership role in it, and they enable it. But they know almost nothing about data analytics and BI, right? The new reality is that data analytics and BI has to be owned by business leadership. And that's why you see on the top there, and again, I come back to, this talk is not a technical talk. This is a talk about culture, it's about leadership, it's about people. And if you came for IT talk, happy to do it, but you know what? You gotta sit and wait till the very end. And even then, you might be sorely disappointed, right? And it's not that I'm not capable of talking about it. It's just that this is the part that's a big challenge. The IT stuff is easy. It's actually dead easy, all right? Okay, so the business case for BI deployments. Not going to go through this in detail, right? But this is a winning slide for us because we list these for business leaders on the left. And let me pull one from there. Number 3. Pick on somebody else besides Aldwin. Aldwin is just too tempting to pick on. Betty, can you speak, Betty? I got chase Betty away. Someone else could volunteer besides Aldwin. Who's on? Who else is on? So Aldwin, you go ahead and read it. Number 3 down. down the line.
Right.
Number
Business
the
people
one.
building Excel on the left, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So business people building Excel-based graphs in PowerPoint.
Right. So that's no surprise, right? So what people do is they build their data sources in Excel, and then they use PowerPoint to actually present it. And that's normal. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. I am guilty as charged on it, right? But really and truly, what the way you want your organizations to go is where that data is already being absorbed into a system and being used in the right way. So you use, not that you don't use Excel, but you use less Excel. All right. A key thing is dashboards. You want to have data dashboards carrying the basic data that people need to operate day to day. All right. And to get those dashboards, you need your data located in one place, one common database, and it's bringing data from all these other sources. So that's the IT technical part of it. All right. But most importantly, people won't use these systems unless the leadership gives the direction that this is what we need to use. I need to see the results of this. If leadership does not mandate or use the data themselves that actually comes out of it, it will go nowhere. All right. So lessons learned from other BI deployments. So I'm not going to talk through all these, but these are real scenarios. And in fact, some of them are almost quotes that we have from clients in Trinidad about why they had problems with BI. Things such as data visual, the data is not actually used at the board level. So they would deploy a system, and people would, they may use it at like the mid senior level, but when it came to the board, they say, no, don't show the board that. Then we type up a report there. And I could tell you one organization that has had 2 MBA level people spending 15 days typing up board reports every month, right? And when they actually had the systems, it's not that they didn't have the IT systems, they actually have all the systems with the data, but because they wanted to massage the data in a particular way to show the board, so rather than showing the board the actual waste money on 2 very high level staff to type up reports for the board every month, and the board report is all that thick, as opposed to having it electronically, just showing the board the same data the rest of the organization sees. All right. So a lot of the problems here are basic things like leaders who don't bother to use the tool. They expect their secretary or somebody else to actually use it, right? Okay, so where will we be and by when? And this is the slide that I think is really important in terms of us understanding it, right? You can see that from left to right, it shows maturity of an organization. So you can see it start from a basic level, which is reporting, tactical, which is some level of analysis, focus, which is intelligent analysis, and strategic, where it's prediction. Strategic is when you're really starting to use analytics. Analytics kicks in at that point in time because you are literally trying to spot trends before they happen, and you're mining data to a degree you feel like in a CSI movie or something, right? So it's the thing is, no one in Trinidad is operating even near that level, right? And if someone is operating at that level, they're operating at a very micro scale. They are one man or very small operation, no firm in it. We have Trinidad managers. Just had a discussion with somebody at a meeting this morning where they were still complaining that when people have COVID, the manager expect them to be working still, Well, you could still work, right? No, you can't work when I've had COVID, and you can't work when you have COVID. It's the mentality of the leadership that is keeping us there. It's the same kind of leadership that a few years ago would still have their secretary print all their emails for them and put it on their desk. True talk, I had a manager like that. Never touch his computer, let his secretary print all emails, kill all those trees, and he used to read the emails and give it to her to reply to. later on in the day. All right. So there's some glimmers of hope, and the private sector in Trinidad is actually heavily automated and uses a lot of technology. So we're very much in the tactical phase, but still not at the level where we could be in terms of organizations. We still rely on Excel, spend a lot of time preparing charts and reports, repetitive charts and reports every week, every month. Somebody maintains a chart, and God forbid they lose it, or it gets corrupt, or the hard drive crash or something like that, right? And a few organizations are really knocking on intelligent analysis, where they have, it's not just about money, it's not about having these huge grandiose systems, though it does help with business intelligence, but it's about having access to data you need to run your company. All right. So just a quick slide on big data, right? And this really looks at where having this is the problem of companies sit on a lot of data, right? And they tend not even know what kind of gold mine they have in data sitting out there. So, like if you think insurance companies, if you they've actually been automated for quite some time. So they have a lot of data, say it's sitting in some sort of server or AS400 or something out there, and that mining that data, it's immensely valuable potentially for them. But most, if not all, businesses do recognize that data is going to play a part in their, and surprisingly, small firms are recognizing that data is critical to them in the future. All right. All right. So how do we do it at Ratio? So now we get into, so we spoke about why business intelligence, why we have to do it, right? And we covered that it's really a differentiator for firms everywhere. It provides immense sort of customer facing efficiencies, right? It is a motivator. It is a motivator. It keeps your employees engaged and on mission, on topic, right? But how do we start deploying business intelligence? So specifically, I would target this towards companies that have not started that journey yet. Companies that are starting, who is surprisingly, a lot of firms still in Trinidad are still sitting where they use technology in isolation, right? And how do you get an organization, a typical private sector, even I've worked with a couple of state, Ratio itself has worked with a couple of state enterprises who've used our approach and who have actually benefited from our approach. So again, it's down to leadership. So how can we start deploying this, right? So we need to understand what the process is for deployment. And this is specifically Ratio, but you would find that there's a lot of similarities. So if you look at how maybe other consultancy firms or how some technology firms themselves who deploy business intelligence, how they go about it. There is a leadership and data source owner engagement. Data source owner is very important because always out there is somebody who owns this data. They're normally either middle management or senior management, and they own that chunk of data. So the sales manager would be the owner of this big chunk of customer related data. The finance manager would be the data source owner for all this financial data in their whatever finance system that they use. And that includes manual data also. It doesn't have to be electronic, right? And we build, test, and deploy a solution, right? And most importantly, there's an ownership period where the users get accustomed to using the system. They use it in anger, and leadership and the staff work together to make sure they optimize the system. And maybe this differs from what Shivani taught me at project management, but really and truly, in fact, I clearly remember a debate with Shivani about this, but really and truly for us, the project is never over until the system is embedded and people are actually using it. And when I say system, not the IT stuff, it's the entire system. And what do we mean by the entire system? All right. So on the technical side, so Alwyn, if you wanted to see the actual technical side of things here, right? So typically you have a data source. There's some sort of ETL, which is extract, transform, load on the data, and the data is pulled into a centralized data hub. Typically a SQL server or some sort of database server, right? And these days, those things typically sit on the cloud out there, right? And you don't have to invest in hardware and stuff to actually get this, right? There's some sort of data modeling done on the data to make sure it's structured properly. And then there's a front end, which is the dashboards and reports. Most of the time, dashboards, because dashboards become your reports really in the organization of the future. And we typically use Microsoft Power BI, but again, there are lots of tools out there. The biggest other one is Tableau, huge, but and you'll find that many companies, like for instance SAP, they do this. They do this already. They have a model like this that connects their SAP data source, and they own all the in between. So you're probably even using this if you work at a organization anywhere that uses some advanced, and you may see this in action, right? But it tends to be targeted towards one set of data. For example, finance data, procurement data, customer data, right? This, what we're talking about here is to pull multiple data sources, right? Which could be SAP, which could be PeopleSoft, which could be Excel files, which could be old custom databases, which could be ERPs, and we pull that into a shared database. And this is where you need your IT department. This is where you need your technical help. This is where you need your experts. What I'm saying is, whilst this for you and I is not easy, at the end of the day, as far as the challenges and projects go, this is the straightforward path. Right? This is the straightforward bit. The hard part, and even the constructing the reports and analytics, is pretty simple. It's getting people to use the system in a holistic fashion. That's a big challenge. And that's my main message here. And I'm hoping that you walk away with. All right. Good. So just giving you an example of how we build our demo environment. And you'll just see that our demo environment is actually based on actual deployments that we've done for clients. So essentially what these links in our demo environment, what these take you to is these take you to dashboards. And these are real dashboards that we've done for real clients. Of course, we scrub their names and stuff in there. We put in dummy data, right? And you'll see it covers the entire organization, because we are just showing you how you can run your entire organization, right, off of dashboards in a nutshell. Okay, and I alluded to this before, is that the easy part is actually, getting the data on a dashboard. The hard part is, and I've not gone into detail about mapping metrics, because what we're talking about is performance management, and we are talking about taking KPIs and making sure people have a real-time view of their KPI in a nutshell. So in your organization, if you've got a KPI, you've got to process 50 invoices a day. You need a KPI that tells you, look, I am processing 49 right now, so I am one under my target. All right. Okay, so just give you a flavor of the different visuals that you would typically use. So a dashboard would be made up of multiple of these, and a lot of these you're probably accustomed to, typical bar charts and line charts. But they, particularly when you're using the tools, there's a lot of innovative, very scenario specific tools you could use, like radar plots, spider plots, wheels, histograms. So there's a wide variety of ways of presenting data. All right. And just a bit on KPIs again. Again, KPIs are essentially key performance indicators for departments. And if you think of it, every organization, even nonprofits, should have KPIs. And each person and each department and the organization itself should have goals, objectives, and specifically KPIs. And key performance indicators should be captured and tracked for everyone in the organization. And that is the opening for firms to start to implement business intelligence, because by capturing this data, you can then demonstrate the gauge, because most of the time people, one of the biggest challenges in leading high performing teams is that, okay, people don't know, people have no idea of how good that they are performing. Yeah. They have to wait on a report, if they're lucky, every month, most likely at the end of the quarter, God forbid, once a year, at their performance review, as opposed to them being told in real time how you're progressing against KPIs. All right. And what should be done is that your interaction with your team, specifically meetings, should be built around, hey, how are we doing against our targets? How are we doing against these KPIs? And to have that discussion, it can't be a subjective discussion. It needs to be, oh, here's the data. This is how we're performing. And by the way, these are the gaps. Let's go and address it. By the way, we kicked it out the party on Friday. All right. Okay. So as an example, what we put in, this might look very abstract, but really it's a meeting structure, right? Typically what we roll out in addition to the technology. So on one hand, as I showed you before, we deploy this, right? So we deploy an IT system, and guess what? We can do bits of this ourselves, but we actually typically outsource a lot of this. We have a partner company that does a lot of really good work in this area. They are specialists, right? They are the specialized tool to address one particular problem, and they do it like nobody else. And so when we go into a customer, we ring fence this and we let our partner deploy this, because we know that they can get this done in a short amount of time and have it ready exactly how we want it. Once we have this, then we kick this in. This essentially says at the bottom that there are meetings at a team level here, and at every one of these, when you see TOR means terms of reference. A terms of reference is basically an agenda, yeah, and a dashboard. Those are the two things you need for your meeting. You also need an action log, action tracker or something, right? Once you have those two things rolling into a meeting, you then, out of, let's say at your team meeting, at the bottom down here, you have finance. Finance probably have about 20, 30 KPIs that they're tracking. But from there, that bumps up to the higher level finance, which is probably finance management, and they would take about 15 of those KPIs. Then that bumps up to a higher level VP functions meeting, and they would not look at all 15 KPIs. They would probably look about 6 KPIs. And then it goes up to the board or the executive level, where they look at 1 or 2 of those KPIs. The thing is, all of this data is linked together in the background, and everybody just has a different view of it. So everyone's looking at the same data. So guess what? Not a single person has to type up a report for these meetings, because the data from the meetings, which is primarily your dashboard, but again, also your action log, right, is looked at. The data flows from one meeting to the other. Well, it doesn't typically flow. It's all sitting there. So each meeting just looks at data and they take corrective action based on it, and they record what actions that they do against that, right? Aldwin, any comment on this? I don't know how much this looks like stuff that you've worked with or that you have an interest in.
Yeah, I would say that I've not actually seen an implementation like this before. But I've seen similar structures. I know with one client in particular, we actually integrated their sales, procurement, finance, and services. So they have like a support department, and we've actually integrated that data, which was relevant and pertinent to what their management wanted to see. So, but this implementation is actually pretty interesting. But again, like you mentioned, it's all kind of built on the same building blocks. But
Right.
but it's implemented for each organization differently.
And you, and I could just tell it that that's very similar to what we do, except
Mm.
we pitch it on a very wider scale. Organization
Yeah.
wide is the best way, or at least a full business unit,
Yes. Right, correct.
preferably across the organization, because what the objective should be is that you're rolling at the management level. The management team probably meets once a week. When they
Mhm.
go in, they just pull up their management dashboard and everything in it is updated, right? And they
Yeah.
just need to look, okay, no, that doesn't look good. That looks good. That doesn't look good. Let's intervene on that. And then
Mhm.
when they have the meeting with their board, that same data presented slightly differently. The board will look at the different targets and everything, and it's the same data going up. So it is very similar to what you described that you've done with your clients, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that there's the element of building that repository in the background that doesn't. And the hardest part, again, is getting people to keep to this. In fact, most of
Yeah.
our experiences, when we're there, we hold their hand, we run the meetings for them, and they tend to stick to it. You say, okay, right, guys, we go on, good luck with it, walk away. 2 weeks on, people like, lose the plots and fall off the wagon,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that tends
Culture
to
is the
be
biggest thing.
correct. I must say, we
Yeah.
work with national flour mills on a not performance management, but continuous improvement program. And we implemented a structure similar to this, but it's more targeted towards continuous improvement, which is, as I guess everybody on this probably knows, continuous improvement, which is about taking existing, creating a hopper of potential savings and interventions you could do across the company as mini projects, and a team dedicated to executing the best of those and trying to get them done in a sprint style where you're not creating projects for 2 years or 6 months. You're doing the project within 2 or 3 months, right? Delivering that. And we built a system for them. And surprisingly, years later, they were one of our first clients. And years later, we found out they were still using it. They were doing it. They were not to the best degree, but they were still using it because they believed in it and they saw benefit from it. It actually saved the company money because they were doing projects which solved this. And we've done a similar one for the Carib Brewery, actually. So, all right. So this is an example of a terms of reference. So you see, we here talking about meetings and agendas and who attended the meeting and what is the, this is critical. You can't get BI without something telling you that you have to use BI, to cut a long story short, right? And to implement this takes absolute leadership. Leadership needs to say, this is how we're going to do it. We're not going to walk in and I'm not going to sit on my chair and cuss everybody around the table. People not going to bounce in late whenever. Sally, they're not going to be on her iPhone for the entire meeting. We are going to have a 1 hour meeting, well, in this case, 105 minutes, right? But we are going to do it by the numbers. And I ran a meeting just this morning before here using exactly one of these, and we stuck exactly to the agenda, and we got everything delivered, and it made people feel good and believe in the system because it tells them, look, there's a structure to what we're doing and there's a reason why we do it. And guess what? A big part of this meeting is to look at the data and to decide what to do with it. And you can see from here, the number 4 and number 5 are the data reviews on this, which is the process safety scorecard review and the integrity management scorecard review. All right. Okay, so this is just a quick bit on what a metric is. For the purposes of what we're doing here, I'm not going to go into what metrics are. Actually, I think Alvin probably knows what all that is, but these play into how you design KPIs. Again, we spend a lot of time with leaders out there, making sure that they understand this, that you get this right, everything else could actually play in here. And yes, you could build metrics and KPIs and do it manually. It's just going to be very difficult to track it, or you need to assign somebody full-time just to track KPIs, all right? Okay, and so to to summarize how we do performance management, again, performance management is the tip of the spear for us when it comes to business intelligence. The site performs your work, right? So you're manufacturing, you make 10 bales of whatever. Data is collected by the source owners, right? The data is entered and approved into the database or whatever it is, right? The data is analyzed, number 4, the root cause is identified, and they put comments on it. They say, okay, right, let's intervene on that. Let's, or you know what, those numbers are okay. We're good with that, right? The site leaders, the managers, the VP, and the board, I must add, review the data in team performance meetings. And most importantly, number 6, you decide actions based on data. Cannot do the old Trinidadian thing. Well, you can, but it's not a recommended way of doing things. You can't run a business based on gut. I appreciate that gut and instinct do play a role in decision making. Of course they do, right? But your team needs to regularly make most of their decisions based on data. And the data comes first. And if you want to add in emotion and gut feel to it afterwards, go ahead. But look at the data first and foremost. What is the data? And I feel in our neck of the woods, in Trinidad, this is what we lack tremendously. We have no appreciation for looking at the data first and then deciding what to do. I always wonder, does WASA have a map somewhere where they track a live map showing you all the leaks in real time? Like, yes, these are the active leak. That's a major leak. That's a minor leak. That's the dates on it. A big screen in WASA Central. And when you're walking, you see all these lights. You say, shit, boy, how much leaks we have? And some man go say, nah, okay, I go tackle these big ones here. Don't worry. Go on, get a crew, go off, come back 3 days later, kill half of it. You know, it's like, that's the kind of thing that happens. When I led an IT team and IT team doing, we were running offshore communications, right? And we were having lots of problems. We were having lots of problems going on. We had a help desk system, but still, we were always firefighting. One of the big differences with me, and this is like 20 years ago, right? We got a flat screen, put it up, right? And back then, flat screen was a big thing, right? Put up a flat screen, got a map of the area that we had the offshore platforms in and the online sites, showed everything live, and anytime anything went down, we set up some simple monitoring devices that ping different devices, that ping the remote sites. As soon as something went down, it turned red. And just everybody walking around, from the time you saw something turn red, it's like, okay, that's not right. We need to fix it. You know, it's like that's how they design control rooms. Control rooms are designed, control rooms for like plants and nuclear plants and even like SpaceX and NASA and stuff. They designed a control room so that when a light goes off, you have to pay attention to it. That's the same thing. It forces you to take action. And that's what dashboards do. And to have the dashboards, you need data. All right. So, and then you close it off by having actions there. All right. And this is a lot more on what the dashboard actually look like and what leadership has to do, right? And it's about working with leadership to actually get it. I'm seeing a lot of recognition from Aldwin on how this works. And, you know, clearly this is not your first rodeo, Aldwin, when it comes to this kind of stuff, all right? All right, so just getting down to the end, a reminder on what it is that we're deploying. We're talking about business intelligence under the banner of performance management, because that's where I believe that Trinidadian businesses could use business. This is the entry point. This is the what they call the gateway drug, right? This is the gateway drug for organizations to start to use business intelligence. Because if you go to any business leader and you talk to them, performance invariably comes up. He says, look, I don't know how my people are performing, or I'm not happy with how my people are performing. So what metrics are you looking at, right? How do you know how they're performing? How do you know where you're getting your own data from? So we've got KPIs, which a lot of organizations have, right? We use a integrated action tracker. So we use an electronic version of that, right? In terms of references for every meetings, of course, meeting scorecards, we score meetings to make sure people run them properly. performance charter, which is and performance charters and business plans, which essentially you are planning a year in advance and breaking that down to tactical plans, all right? All supported by a database out there and dashboards that look not unlike this. All right. So business intelligence journey from why do I need it to how would you start to implement it? And you start to implement it by doing a project that would look something like this. All right. So Alwyn, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would say excellent, Marcus. Thank you for sharing what you have. I think I sort of hinted at it earlier that culture is really the largest impediment to these initiatives.
Yes.
I've seen at least in one instance where the team got management to understand how important these tools were, but the whole initiative actually fell apart because they didn't see the value in it, right? So the team wanted it. Yeah, the team wanted, right, and management didn't. They felt that it was too onerous, or it took them away from how they wanted to manage or run their days.
Right.
And they didn't. And I think it was probably more of. I think it's like a pride or maybe ego that they didn't want to admit that they didn't understand what the process was and what the information and the systems were showing. And it actually caused the entire project to fall apart because they just didn't support it. But
Wow.
I think the team, they went ahead and they implemented something of their own. And they've been using their own internal system, right? But
that's no
again,
isn't it? Yeah, that's no, but you actually see at a team level, you see teams operating, how built there. There are teams operating there. No doubt about it. There are teams around us operating that, but not organizations.
Yeah, not organizations as a whole. That's correct.
Yeah, and that's where I think if you were to really start to qualify BI, if you were to really start talking about BI with one of your customers, it would have to be, you need to talk organization wide. You can't be talking a sales system, or unless you're a huge sales organization. I mean, we work with a sales organization in the US that spanned every state in the US. So that was BI. That was BI on steroids just for the sales department. But that was huge, right? Yeah. But if you're talking about the scale of Trinidadian businesses, you got to be talking. I understand if you don't want to do the CSRs, or if you don't want to do the maintenance guys, I understand that. But the core of your business, finance, your warehouse, logistics, sales, all together, HR, right? HSE, you put those things together, and what you have is a business solution there. And we have one rule, Alwyn, and I hope that you take this and hopefully it helps you, is that we literally don't talk to anybody who's not the CEO or the VP finance or the VP operations. Because we know that it's not about, we're not trying to be elitist, but we know that you cannot get a project that does organizational change without one of those people, or higher if it's the chairman. Better yet, you need somebody to come in and say, guys, we're in trouble, or we're going to be in trouble in a few years if we don't pull up our socks. Leadership has to say that. And I love this story that you give, and with your permission, I would probably relate that at one of my future engagements, because I think it's typical of what I've found out there. The teams want to adopt it, but leadership pushes back on it, or leadership just doesn't use it.
Yeah, correct. And that's fine. You have my permission too. That's okay.
I would very much love for if maybe Shivani can share our contact info. I'd love to maybe further our discussion at some point in time.
Sure, no problem.
Challenges out there, and my approach as a consultant of what I have learned, and this is a good example of how Shivani and I work together, is that we don't compete with other consultants really. You know, it's like you may compete on a single bid, but that's very rare. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, we are in an ecosystem where we can all help each other. And I
Yes.
found it much better to work with all the consulting companies up there, because you never know who might give you a call one day to say, hey, we need some help with this, or have a client that I don't think my skill set fits, but I think, you know what, I think you can do that. So
Correct.
absolute pleasure. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
indeed.
Okay. David and Shivani, if there's no other questions, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Marcus. I learned quite a lot on business intelligence.
You know, I could talk on this until the cows come home, Shivani. You know, we didn't even start on the technical side big time. Yeah.
Yes, and Alwyn had lots of great talks with this.
Great.
So thanks again, Marcus. If there are no questions, thank you very much for being
It was
part
a
of
lot of
the
fun,
Lunch and
Shivani.
Learn.
This was a lot of fun, Shivani. Thank you very much for inviting me. And again, if you can probably share my contact information with Aldwin and vice versa, so that we can get in contact with each other.
Thank you so much, Marcus. And we look forward to having you back on Caribbean Connect Lunch and Learn series as we go week to week. Thanks again,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks again,
Bye-bye.
Marcus. All the best. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Alwyn, thanks. Bye-bye.
My
I'm seeing a
pleasure.
lot of
Take
nice
care.
names, popular names here. Tanil. Hi,
Hi,
Adrian.
how are you?
Nice seeing you.
Nice being here. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
All the best.
Take care.